Elizabeth May impresses, Andrew Scheer dodges, and Jagmeet Singh falters. I'm Marco Perri. Welcome to the Perri platform. So, the first federal leaders debate is in the history books, and I must admit, I found it pretty entertaining overall. And before we even get to that, I want to talk about the way the debate was formatted. It wasn't the typical setup where the moderator is in complete control and he shuts down all interruptions, and there really isn't much debating. For some reason, the moderator took a step back and he let the candidates go wild. They came for each other, and they're interrupting each other left, right, and center, attacking each other, going off topic, and it was glorious. Now, some people didn't like it, they thought it was unorganized, and the moderator didn't do a good job, but in my personal opinion, we need more of that. We actually got to hear some real ideas, and people get called out. It was a pleasant change. Now, there was only 3 party leaders there: Andrew Scheer from the Conservatives, Elizabeth May from the Green, and Jagmeet Singh from the NDP. Now you might be wondering, where's the big boy, the head honcho, Mr. Justin Trudeau? Well, apparently he was campaigning, quote unquote. Well, he actually was campaigning, but it was very clear to me why he didn't want to show up as the debate went on. So as I mentioned, the moderator took a step back. He was not really intervening too much, and the candidates were tearing each other up. If Justin Trudeau was present, it would be a 3-on-1. All of them were still talking about Trudeau and coming for him, even though he wasn't there. Now, imagine that Justin Trudeau was there, just getting caught off guard by all the candidates questioning him about things like the SNC scandal, about the carbon tax, about some of his more controversial policies. He would be completely bewildered and he'd be torn to the ground. So I have to give kudos to Trudeau. In terms of strategy, it was an amazing decision for him to not show up. If he did, it would have been a slaughter. Now, just because of that, I have to give him and the Liberals a victory. Just by not showing up, he won the debate. He didn't get any major reputational damage. He let his other rivals tear each other apart, and he sat back, probably drank a beer, and watched it all happen from afar while he was campaigning. One thing that happened at the debate, though, that I found quite comical was they actually left his podium empty. So throughout the debate, you were always made aware that someone was missing. It wasn't like if they got rid of it and it was just those 3 leaders, maybe during some points, Trudeau would slip to the back of your mind and then you'd be more focused on the topics at hand. But every second you'd be like, oh yeah, he's not here. He didn't show up. He was basically being a coward and didn't want to face these guys. He's kicked the can down the road. There will be a time where he has to debate his fellow candidates, and that would be something to see. But right now, he didn't feel like doing it at the immediate moment, and that was ever so present throughout the entire show. Elizabeth May even went up to the podium and did like a fake handshake, like basically mocking Trudeau and signifying that, yeah, this guy didn't want to come face us. He ran away to go campaigning, and that was like the nail in the coffin for me. Even though I still think he escaped with the least amount of damage, that probably didn't sit well with too many viewers. They wonder why the sitting prime minister is not willing to come forward and face these candidates. He'll have plenty of time to campaign, but these debates are limited, so yeah, there's that. Now, I want to start off by profiling Elizabeth May of the Green Party because, as I mentioned at the beginning, she was a surprise to me. I was very impressed with her, and I found that she was actually the strongest candidate out of the 3. Throughout the debate, she was the only one who was actually able to receive feedback, respond to it, and attack other candidates successfully. She didn't really falter at any points, and her ideas were good. She came off as the logical moderate amongst the 3. Andrew Scheer, his strategy was more so dodging every question, not answering anything straight on, and targeting Trudeau. Every chance he got, he would say Trudeau this, Trudeau that. He didn't really care too much about Singh and May because obviously they're not really his competition. If you want to look at it long term, it's going to come down to Scheer versus Trudeau, so Scheer is taking every chance he can get to keep his eyes on the prize and take down the head honcho. Jagmeet Singh was just attacking left, right, and center, and he was saying some nonsense proposals, and even May called him out for that. That was really funny. I'm going to talk more about that later when I go over the highlights, but overall, Singh came off as the most radical candidate, and I don't think his performance did himself any favors in terms of polling. To me, he just worsened his image, and May bettered hers. One thing I really admired about Elizabeth was the fact that she kept things realistic, and she was able to acknowledge good ideas when she heard them. One example of that was when Andrew Scheer was talking about his environmental platform. A lot of people are trashing on the conservative ideology about how to save the environment, But May, she didn't stoop to those levels. Actually, what she said, that she read through the whole document and there were some good ideas in there. She also said that it's not enough and more has to be done. But yeah, there's some decent ideas and we can work with that. I really like that because May didn't take the traditional politician approach, which would be trash everything and ignore whatever good aspects there are, just label everything as bad. And that was actually a major win for Andrew Scheer. You had the leader of the Green Party saying that your environmental plan was not complete garbage, because really it isn't. There's a lot of aspects in it that can work, and as May said, it's probably not enough to meet these international quotas and goals, but it's a good starting point, and arguably, it's on par with the Liberals' plan. That was a big victory for Scheer, because prior to this, a lot of people were saying the plan was garbage, it had no good aspects to it, nothing could redeem it, but May took a different approach, and I like that. She also completely shut down Jagmeet and made him look like a fool. One time they were talking about healthcare, and May was talking about universal pharmacare and trying to cover dental plans, and Jagmeet Singh came on and said, yeah, that's exactly what we want to do. It's actually part of our plan. May responds by saying, have you even done the math? To cover all of Canada's dental expenses, it would start at about $30 billion, and that's annually. It's pretty much impossible, and May then goes on to say, we've done the math, and we find that the only realistic approach right now is to start with small groups and maybe expand that out. Start with children, the less well off, maybe the elderly. We can't do everybody, but there are certain target groups who we can help. And I was like, wow, she actually got him with that. When she asked him, did he do the math? You can just see Singh's face like, oh, snap. That's not what politicians do. We never do the math. And she's just here being the shining example of good policy, whether you agree with it or not. She has some sort of justification backed by numbers, statistics, and fact, while Singh is just throwing crazy ideas at the wall to see what sticks, even though they're not feasible. That's the biggest difference between the two parties that came to my mind. And May, even though she gave some acknowledgement to Scheer's environmental plan, she still said that both of the candidates here and Trudeau don't really understand climate change, and they're the only party that's really prepared to implement what needs to be done. That may be true, but I feel like it's also going to come around and be the reason why the Green Party isn't competing to its full potential, because they've centered their platform so much around the environment. Now, if you look at their platform more in detail, you can see that they actually have ideas for a broad range of issues, but that's not publicized. And as I mentioned, you have to look in detail. The average voter is not going to go dig that far into a campaign to get the gist of it. They want the quick highlights, and the Green Party has basically labeled themselves as the one-stop shop for the environment, and that's pretty much it. Even though it doesn't encompass the full truth here, that's the way they're being marketed, and it's not going to allow them to get that many seats. I feel like they might do better than the NDP, but third place is still a loss in these elections. Now, a little bit more about Andrew Scheer. He was a pretty funny guy. I found this to be kind of annoying, but every time a real question was posed to him, he took the political approach, which was say something kind of related, but don't address the question fully. And he did that nonstop. Every chance he got to respond to a question that may have hindered his reputation, he just did a dance around it. And he kind of got away with it, because even when the other candidates like Jagmeet, May, and even the moderator called him out for not answering the question, he would respond to that by again not answering the question. So the point is, he's not going to answer it no matter how many times you ask or how many times you call him out. And he did it in a way that was kind of sly. If you weren't really listening that closely, you might actually have the shades pulled over you, and you might not realize he just dodged the entire question, because he would say something that is sort of related and it's a good response, but the crux of what was being asked was never addressed. And at the same time, he was just talking about Trudeau the whole time. Any chance he got, Trudeau was bad, I'm better, and that was it. Now, you have to give Scheer the proper recognition for his strategy here. Why waste time trying to tear down the Green Party, trying to tear down the NDP? The NDP has done that themselves, but why try to do it further? They're not really in contention with the Conservatives. As I mentioned, it's unfortunate, but it really comes down to two parties here, and Scheer has his eyes on the prize. He's going to go after Trudeau, and he's kind of going to ignore the lesser candidates. May and Singh came for Trudeau. They also came for each other, and they came for Scheer as well, but it was more diversified. Scheer only had one goal, and that was very clear from the start. Now, Jagmeet Singh. As you can probably tell, I'm no fan of his or the party, and a lot of people are jumping ship. They're realizing that their leader is kind of crazy, talks a big game, a lot of big promises. He hates the rich, he wants to take them down, wants to restructure the Canadian economy, wants to give everyone dental care, all these amazing things. But first of all, it's not feasible, it's not realistic, and he's campaigning based on emotional tinges. He doesn't really have any concrete things that he's going to do. His plan's kind of frivolous. And what? You want a party like that in power? Based on the polling data, Canadians are saying no. The one strong point that Singh had was Aboriginal issues. When that came up, and May as well, they both had strong arguments for this. Singh said that he wouldn't be trying to fight back against any lawsuits. He would prioritize those communities. He would make partnerships and whatnot. But aside from that campaign point, there wasn't really too much to see here. There's also a really interesting idea that was debated amongst the three. Elizabeth May was talking about the SNC scandal, and yeah, they were dragging Trudeau through the mud, but they also talked about what they would do if they were in his shoes, and she had this idea of forcing companies like SNC, who are in violation of laws, to undertake certain civil tasks to better community as a sort of punishment for their actions. So her idea was that they would force SNC to build transportation or fix waterways in certain communities up north and whatnot as a form of penance for the actions that they took. I actually found that to be a really interesting idea. Even at the individual level, when someone commits a crime, they can be forced to do community service and better the community as a form of penance. So making a major corporation do that makes sense to me because the reach they have is going to be much wider too. The average Joe can maybe pick up a couple hundred pieces of litter, but a company like SNC can completely rebuild the TTC, for example. They can develop infrastructure, waterways, and whatever else you need in remote communities. They have a lot more tools available to them, and I don't see why using that in a criminal justice sense would not be allowed. Singh took the opposite stance. He said it was the worst idea, essentially, that he's ever heard, and they went at it for a little bit, but I have to agree with May. That seemed to be pretty interesting to me. And overall, Singh came out as the loser of the debate, I would say. Scheer was in the middle. He didn't really win or didn't lose. He was trying to tear Trudeau down. He was dodging questions, doing his thing. So yeah, he was the mid-tier candidate. And I feel like May was the victor. She really showed her experience. She was able to debate a lot. And she got some really cool points across. She didn't dodge questions. And she came at them, in a strong way. Also, during the debate show, there was a certain poll that was going around that was asking viewers to rank order what key issues was going to motivate them the most during this election. Number one was the economy, and that was by a wide margin. Second was the environment, and after that, the rest of them weren't really making up any significant portion of the poll. So those are your top two issues really for Canada. Based on the polling data, the economy obviously, number one. Last month there was some scare about an incoming recession. People don't want to be facing that. Things have been going good for a long time. Recessions come with a lot of negative effects to an economy. You might lose your job, your retirement goes down, your investments go down, it's harder to make ends meet. That's not a reality that Canadians want to face. If a politician can come in and have the economy as a strong suit of their platform, have some great ideas on how to prevent those things, how to shield Canadians from any incoming recession, well, that's a winning campaign promise. And second is the environment. If a party can do both of those things, they're a shoo-in to win. I'm not too sure if there's a party that has both of those things in high regard in the same platform though. You have the Greens, who are really good for the environment, Singh, who's good for none of those two things, Trudeau, who's kind of in the middle, and I would say Scheer is stronger on the economy but a little bit less on the environment. But still, nobody's really excelling in those two categories, but those are the two categories that Canadians want the most. It's going to be interesting to see how people's platforms change and shift to meet these needs in the future. So that's about it for today. Thanks for joining me, and if you enjoy the content, be sure to leave a review and share. You can also find me on Twitter at Perri Platform. I'll see you soon.